Wildermyth is a party-building turn-based strategy game set in an original fantasy universe. But unlike many games that would also match that description, Wildermyth has a focus that's on characters and stories. It's the second part of the game's name that's important. It's that myth part that this game really gets into. Campaigns in Wildermyth take place over extended periods of time, and the heroes you control will age and maybe die. But before they do, they'll go on adventures, win great battles, prove their strength, their courage, or maybe their restraint. The farmers and barmaids that form your party will train and grow into great warriors, but as they embark on more adventures, they can also become legends. I first played Wildermyth way back in early access, and I thought it was a really good game, but maybe needed a bit more content. So I waited for its 1.0 release to recommend it, and when that day came, my computer broke and I lost my review and all my footage. But I can finally recommend it now. So, how does it work? Wildermyth is played in campaigns that either last 3 chapters for a short campaign or 5 chapters for a long one. There are 5 main campaigns, each of which uses a different of the 5 enemy races as its main overarching threat. There's the deepest cult below the mountains, the corruption-spreading Gorgons, the monstrous Drauven, the sleepless mechanical workers of the Morthagi, or the nightmarish telepathic Thrixel. And it's nice to see a fantasy combat game where the word orc isn't mentioned once. If 5 campaigns sounds like too little for you, don't worry. My first campaign against the deepest cult took nearly 5 hours on its own, and I didn't even win, so I was happy to try it again. But even after a victorious run, there's replayability in the main campaigns when using new characters or trying new styles. And in addition to all of that, Wildermyth can also procedurally generate 3 and 5 chapter campaigns with all the same gameplay, just less of an overarching story. While inside of a campaign, the gameplay has 3 different levels: the overworld, the stories, and the combat. In the overworld, this is the map of where the campaign takes place, where you can see different regions, towns, quest locations, and enemy infestations. The decision making and strategy on this level is about planning your adventures. Where to travel on the map, which incursions to try to handle, what fights to engage in, whether to build up towns and areas or construct defences, and of course when to head out to complete the main quests of the campaign. You can split your party up and send heroes to different locations to scout multiple tiles at once, or you could have a weak and injured hero start building a bridge to use in the future, while the rest of the party engages in combat. The risk versus reward in this area of the game is that dealing with every outbreak, patrolling every tile to minimise the enemy threat, slowly building up production buildings in towns, and building strong defences to slow incursions will gain you more resources at the end of a chapter, but these things take time. Repairing a town might take your party a whole month, building a bridge will take longer. If you send a solitary hero to scout a tile, it could take the best part of a season. And as you meticulously improve the world around you, the balance of power could start to shift. The enemy grows stronger over time. The danger in Wildermyth builds in an interesting way, with cards being drawn as calamities, adding powerful bonuses or new unit types to each of the enemy factions. But in contrast to that, over time, your heroes will be growing older. Even though they will still be leveling up and improving with experience and gaining skills, a long campaign could take over 50 years. And as heroes age, their total health decreases, their speed decreases, and depending on factors like their hero class, every character has an age at which they will have to retire from adventuring. If you act too slowly, the epic heroes that you might need to save the world will be old and grey and not as much use as they once were. While out in the overworld, sending your characters around through the different regions, you'll be introduced to small snippets of their lives through these charming, gorgeous illustrated stories, or events. If the campaign was The Hobbit, these stories would be moments like turning the trolls to stone or telling riddles with Gollum. The moments that define your characters in addition to just their successes in battle. These comic book style vignettes are wonderful both in their presentation and the stories they tell. Mysterious interactions with otherworldly spirits, a quest to train your skills and prove your worth, or just a short snippet of life as an adventurer. These stories are interactive, in that they will give you 1 or maybe 2 choices, but those choices do matter, and the different endings to these stories feed back into the game world and your characters, sometimes in quite significant ways. In one scene, greedily trying to prize out a valuable crystal embedded in a rock, I unwittingly began a process that transformed my rogue into a part human, part crystal hybrid, and in the process their offhand turned into a crystal sword. But not all of the events are that grand, others are much simpler, more subtle, emotional, or humanizing, like a member of my party winning over the others with their secret recipe for mushroom soup. These stories give your character a history and details that define them, all through a handful of lines, some stirring string music, and a meaningful decision. Further proof, if any was needed, that games don't need expensive cinematic cutscenes to spin engaging narratives. There are over 200 of these pre-written ideas in the game, which provides a great variety of interesting events to find and interact with. The third layer is the turn-based combat. Whenever you're attacked by enemies or actively engage in a fight to clear a region, the game starts constructing a mission and builds a combat arena in Wildermyth's papercraft style, placing gorgeous hand-painted 2D assets onto the combat grid to create its 3D locations. Dungeons, forests, towns, whatever is needed for that particular encounter. The tactical combat is really engaging. It uses a limited 2 action points per turn and lower numbers for health and damage to keep it clear and understandable, but it still has a great range of abilities and mechanics that allow for a lot of strategic depth, and fights can very much be swayed by clever strategy and planning. Even in the limited number of action points, Wildermyth is clever by giving abilities different types of cost. An ability can either be free, swift, regular, or turn-ending. Free moves, like switching from your primary to secondary weapon, can be played whenever, as many times as you like. You can play one swift move for free every turn, like activating a passive ability, but any other swift actions after that will cost 1 action point. And some actions, typically a regular attack, end a character's go immediately after being used. So a 2 action point turn will start off being a move and an attack, but will gain a much greater range of possibilities as you learn new skills. There are a range of distinct abilities and passive upgrades that give each of your characters their own different feel and style. A hunter could learn Fox Flight, which guarantees successful dodges on the next few attacks, or instead they could carry a bear trap into battle to throw out and pin a melee enemy. Or they could learn to enter Grey Plane and become invisible until their next attack. Entering Grey Plane is normally a turn-ending action, but one of the rogue upgrades is a passive ability that lets a hero enter Grey Plane after a successful kill. And one of my favourite heroes to play was a rogue that would sneak around the battlefield, landing final blows without ever once being seen by the enemy. But still, the part of the combat that I thought was the most interesting were the mages, or mystics as I think they're called. The mages are superb with the way that they interact with the environment. They're just so satisfying to use. Rather than dealing damage directly, mystics instead interfuse with objects in the environment. A wooden table can be exploded to send out splinters and shrapnel flying into a group of enemies. A tree can be compelled to lash out with its roots and attack. A metal pot can be contorted into shackles to pin an enemy in place. Interfusing with a great rock and flinging stone discuses that ricochet among close-knit enemies has real Avatar vibes. The whole design of mystics is the classic red exploding barrel, but made far more interesting. The enemies are also cool, and as you go through the campaign their strength and variety increases. As the calamity cards stack up, more fierce monsters begin to appear in battles, and weaker enemies become more severe threats as they gain health or armour or add an effect to their basic attack. Whether you're fighting from range, interfusing with the environment, pinning or crippling enemies, hiding from sight or using the effects of elemental weapons, there's always something interesting you can be doing in the combat. With the different encounters, upbringings and stories you come across, in addition to the combination of wide-ranging active and passive abilities, each character you create feels distinct and individual, and what this does is it really builds your attachment to the heroes that you make. Wildermyth gives the characters great depth. They have personality attributes that could make them gritty, poetic, romantic, but these can change with the stories they'll be involved in as the campaign progresses. Your characters interact with one another. They can be friends, lovers, rivals, and these relationships feed back into the game. If a hero makes a critical hit, or stunt as Wildermyth calls it, then their rivals get a boost to critical hit chance as they try to outdo one another. Yeah, it's big, but it still only counts as one. I've even had a child of 2 of my heroes join the party and replace one when she grew old and retired. I often found myself picking upgrades for my characters not based on what I thought would be the most effective skill, but what I thought would be the next skill expected of that character. And I think it's always a testament to video game storytelling when the gameplay impact of mechanical decisions can take a back seat to the story. Although, if you're into theory crafting, there is absolutely room for making exceptionally powerful heroes in Wildermyth. But while characters can die and retire, a fragility that always adds extra weight to your decisions in a campaign, Wildermyth also understands that you don't really want to lose these characters. So when a campaign ends, either in victory or defeat, the heroes you've built up can enter your legacy. A multi-tiered catalogue of past legends that lets you step back into the shoes of previous champions and play them across multiple campaigns. As you do so, you'll slowly build up their status from folk hero to local legend, all the way to myth walker, and the higher their tier, the more of their old abilities you can keep when you bring them into new campaigns. I've really enjoyed playing Wildermyth. I've played 20-30 hours of it, and there's still more that I can get out of it. I highly recommend checking this one out if you're a fan of party RPGs, turn-based strategy games, or if you're intrigued by the idea of one that's a little more avant-garde in its storytelling. Wildermyth is still being worked on full-time, even though it is now fully released, so there will be additional content on top of an already superb and polished game. It's both tactical and strategic in its overworld planning and turn-based combat, looks stunning with its hand-painted 2D assets, and has a wonderful musical score. But with the unfolding graphic novel events and meaningful decisions that build your characters, the real treasure of Wildermyth is the heroes you make along the way.